Virtues are good habits that give us a disposition to perform what is good. As human beings, we don't just go along in life making choice, making another choice, making a choice, not making a choice. It's not quite like that. Our life is more organic. A lot of the actions we perform, we do more automatically, on autopilot. We have habits, habitual ways of acting. And when these habits are good, we call them virtues. When they're negative or destructive habits, we call them vices. Even the ancient writers, the great philosophers, knew about virtues and about this dynamic. Virtues are not about necessarily sin or not sin. They're more about how we begin to live well regularly and build ourselves up to be what we're meant to be. They're developmental. There are 4 cardinal virtues that are known by the ancient world and also in the Bible: prudence, fortitude, justice, temperance. And added to these for Christians, we have 3 theological virtues that come from God but need to be exercised in a similar way once received in order that they grow and develop within us. Faith, by which we can easily believe in God and the things that God reveals. Hope, where we can focus all our actions upon attaining heaven, have confidence in that. And charity or love, which allows us to love God with a divine love and to love others as He loves them. These are virtues that work with the natural virtues and transfigure and transform them, elevate them. How do we acquire these virtues? Well, with repeated actions. It's very easy to acquire the vices. Like, it's always easier to go downhill. It's much harder to go uphill because we have a fallen nature. But by repeated good actions, we begin to acquire the virtues. We begin to perform them as a second nature. And it's like this with very technical things as well as it is with the moral life. You become a kind person by being kind. Just as you learn to drive a car by many times practicing it and it becomes automatic. That's how virtuous action works. We're told also about the 7 deadly vices. Sometimes they're called the 7 deadly sins, but they're like vices. The vices are called deadly because they poison the life of the soul. They can kill our relationship with God, and they grow within us just as the virtues grow within us. And there are traditionally 7 of them.
The 7 Deadly Sins and the 4 Last Things is a painting attributed to Hieronymus Bosch of around 1500. The panel of the 7 Deadly Sins is designed to be viewed in the round. Each of the sins appears almost as a spoke on the wheel. Bosch is greatly known for his nightmarish images, often having a surreal quality. Generally, his paintings are packed full of detail and require close inspection. This is no exception. Let's start at the bottom of the circle with the first of the sins that he depicts. This is the sin of wrath, anger, and we see 2 peasants fighting, a woman trying to break them up. Moving around clockwise, we come to envy. Here we see a couple in their house looking enviously towards a wealthy man who walks past with a hawk in his hand and a servant carrying his heavy things. Moving up next, we see greed, sometimes known as avarice. Bosch depicts a judge appearing to listen sympathetically to a plea, but actually accepting a bribe. Next up is gluttony. As perhaps we'd expect, we see a large, fat man eating and a drunkard. Moving round, we come to sloth. A man slumbers before the fire. Faith, personified as a nun, urges him to attend to his prayers. Lust is next. Couples are cavorting in an elegant pavilion, while acrobats perform bestial acts. Finally, pride, the most grievous of the 7 deadly sins. Let's look at this in a bit more detail. A woman has her back to us. She's looking at herself in a mirror, but a demon holds the mirror to her face. Also notice the detail in the apple that Bosch places on the windowsill, a subtle reference to the fall. As I say, this painting requires close contemplation, and we know that it was owned by King Philip II of Spain, who had it in his personal apartment in the Escorial. One's eye can't help but be drawn to the eye in the centre of the composition, the eye of God. Christ is depicted coming out of his tomb. And as if the message isn't clear visually, there's a Latin text which warns the viewer, "Beware, beware, the Lord sees." So perhaps Philip, contemplating this image in his room in the Escorial, is reminded of the message that the Lord sees everything.
In popular culture, people are fascinated by the 7 deadly sins. There are films made about them. I was even once given a box of chocolates with the names of each one on there. But few people are interested in the contrary virtue, which are the antidotes to these vices, which allow us to thrive and live well. So for the vice of anger, which can make us irritable and grow within us, there is the beautiful virtue of meekness, which isn't weakness. It's the virtue that Christ shows to us when people are persecuting him and he remains calm. He can control his passions properly in accord with reason and with charity. With the green-eyed vice of envy, there is the wonderful antidote of thanksgiving and fraternal charity, where we begin to have a spirit of thanking God for the gifts that he's given us, recognizing all those gifts, and also wanting other people to thrive in the gifts that are unique and specific to them. For the vice of avarice, which consumes people to desire more and more stuff, we have the beautiful virtue of liberality, whereby we share what we have with those especially who need it. It's interesting that the happiest people in this world are those who give away what they possess, like St. Francis of Assisi, who even gave the very clothes he had on his back. Instead of the vice of gluttony that makes our belly a god and causes us to be physically unwell, we have the beautiful virtue of temperance, by which we moderate our passions and what we eat and drink, so that it's in accord with reason and with our love of God. To overcome sloth, which stops us doing anything useful and can even be spiritual and stop us doing what we should do in the spiritual life, we have the beautiful virtue, the antidote of diligence, which doesn't mean busybodiness, constantly being on the go, but having the care to do what we need to do at the right time. And it is a gift that prevents us from being slothful and gives us a certain energy to achieve the good, whether physical or spiritual. An important antidote to lust, which is a great corrupter in our society of relationships, of individuals, where their minds and hearts become darkened by selfish desire and the pursuit of pleasure. You have the beautiful antidote of chastity, which isn't something cold and negative, but a way of using the gifts that God has given us for the right purposes, to love properly, the way God has given us the gift of love for marriage, for family, and our minds become bright, our hearts become pure. The antidote to pride, whereby we make ourselves like God, that foundational sin, that foundational vice, the solution is humility. St. Teresa of Avila said, humility is truth. It grounds us in reality, where we really stand. We are creatures before God. But God doesn't leave us down there by being humble. He raises us up. 2 Peter 1:5 reads that we must supplement our faith with virtue. And the virtues bring us to a wholeness. They are to help us to thrive and live well. While they may be hard to achieve, they are always a blessing.